He's Howard Eibach, a former copywriter and creative director and the author of 2 books on the creative brief.
And he's Henry Gomez, an ad agency strategist with 30 years of experience. Together, Henry and I are the Brief Brothers. We love talking about creative briefs, briefing, and advertising. Henry, we're back with another episode. This is part 2 of our conversation with Mark Pollard, the inimitable strategist. Let's join the conversation. How do you bring back something as personal as what that guy in Amsterdam shared with you to the teaching of strategy? How would you do that?
Well, my theory is that the more I can connect the theories or the concepts of strategy to people's real lives, the better it is, the easier it is to learn, the easier it is to remember. So I talk to people a lot about trying to sound like the people they already pay attention to. Why? Advertising is about getting attention. If you get attention and cause an emotional reaction, there's a chance you'll get into the memory. So why not try to sound a little bit more like the people you pay attention to, some of whom are actually paid to communicate, like stand-up comedians. That's one. And the second is around getting an emotional reaction out of people. They're more likely to remember the material as an audience, So I don't think through this stuff in a meta way. It's quite intuitive to me. And it's sort of every year or so, I'll go a little bit deeper or more unhinged. 6, 7 years ago at the end of these days, I did with Julian Cole, who's an awesome strategist and a good friend. I just did this 15-minute session called Strategy Upon a Strategist, where I'd tell some stories about what I grew up around, and then often quite emotional. And I was really nervous at the time that, Julian's younger than I am and grew up a little bit differently. And I was like, I don't want to inflict this stuff on him. Like, I don't want to trauma bomb him all the time. And then what I noticed is if we would have drinks later, everyone was already opened because I'd already made the room vulnerable, and all of a sudden people are sharing really personal stories. But that took maybe 4 or 5 times for me to do that and then think, okay, I'm going to do this even more and harder. And so it's sort of just how I am, but I've had to reserve how I am from the world for a long time. And now I'm trying to not reserve how I am, but it's just these little experiments, and not necessarily even in a formal way, like I'm going to experiment with this. It's just, I feel I need to do this, or I feel this will get a reaction. And then if it does, I keep it in. That's one reason. And then also because I'm in public a little bit, some people are aware that that's what I will do. And that can be weird too for them. It can be weird for me too, but there'll be people in the audience who are ready for it. And then, some of the messages I get later from people are really, really touching. Not everyone, some people are there because they've been encouraged to be. They're not forced, but encouraged to be there by their companies, and other people have, listened to 100 podcasts, read my book, done my courses, and then they still turn up, even though I might be repeating some content for them.
I completely understand that, Mark. I mean, I do a much narrower kind of training than you do, and I'm just was fascinated in the last 5 minutes of your soliloquy there. I'm going to steal some of those ideas. I haven't personally tried to be that kind of person, bring that personal element, but it makes absolutely, completely good sense. I mean, writing a brief is about getting to the emotional heart of what it is that you're selling. And so
Yeah,
why not try to bring that personal element into the training so that people are more in touch with what they're feeling? They're going to have to write about it.
Yeah, my goal is to help people in their lives. And yeah, theoretically, I understand how that can help in strategy, but I've always been like this. I grew up very young, divorced family, a lot of trauma in the family. Mum was sometimes a therapist, psychologist, books all over the place about the men are from Mars, women are from Venus, the Peter Pan syndrome, all that sort of stuff. So I kind of grew up around that. In a bit of a volatile household at times. And so ever since I was really young, I've been a sad boy, poetry guy. And then, when I was 15, I'd have 4-hour phone calls after school, just talking to a person for a long time. I can do that. And I've been thinking about this a lot lately because I'm in new countries now and I get invited to different things, thankfully. If there are more than 4 people, my brain, I really struggle. I struggle. I'm good with like 1 to 3 other people. I'm good on a stage. I can be in front of 1,000 people, 10,000 people. It's fine. 4 people to 20 people. Oh, it's so hard. If it's not my room, my brain's just like, I don't want to deal with this. I just want to have 1 or 2 long conversations. So theoretically, I think it is some of those things I mentioned are good. Also, this is just self-actualization.
Hmm. Well, we have often asked, we always ask our guests, as I asked you, how you found your way to advertising. And what the common thread that Henry and I have discovered is that there's no one path. And often it's something else first. For you, it was magazines and hip hop and other forms of art. And then the chaos of your growing up. It's interesting to hear you say that because I have moved into writing memoirs. And I wrote a memoir about my adoption, which can be traumatic for some people. It wasn't for me. But the whole concept of writing about your life, your personal life, the lessons that you've learned and the things you've gone through, mean that you have to really shed layers. You can't phone it in, as it
Yeah.
were.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm working through some stuff now personally. You know, I've been in 30 cities at least 30 cities this year. I'll probably do 30 to 40 next year. And I think I'm good when I'm in the place for 3 days. Like it's, you know, if you grow up in a divorced family and you're moving between houses, and I'm not saying this is explicit necessarily, but sometimes when you're young, you feel that you're in the way of your parents' lives or their relationships, and you see the eyes of someone that they're dating, like, oh, fuck, these kids are here again. They're going to ruin my weekend. But you kind of grow up with that, not to be, you know, a dark empath or being self-pitying. It's just deeply in me because I'll remove myself from situations. My body will freeze. You know, I was down in Sao Paulo for a friend's 40th birthday. She works at TikTok. 60 people in this house party, and I just didn't feel connected to it. And I just froze. I literally went to dance in Brazil. I just froze. The night before, me and some guys American guy nearly got into a fight with some people. So I was a bit weirded out by that, and I had to get a plane. But it's happened a couple of times in the past few months where these avoidant traits I have remove me from situations or get me in a weird mood. And I'm like, damn, this stuff is still here after, I mean, I was like that as a kid, like a little kid. So yeah, still working on some stuff. I think
What
spending a
kinds
little bit
what
more. Yeah.
what kinds of questions? What would you say is the most prevalent question you get from the people who attend your training?
Oh, that's a different topic. Look, I get big questions like, how do you write a creative brief, or how do I get a job? Like, how do I get a job is probably
Right.
the most common one. And it's almost a rude question. Um, I used to talk about this a bit where, you know, I'm sure you've taught at advertising schools. I would talk for an hour and then someone with a big personality would corner me so that no one else could talk to me. And they would spend 20 minutes trying to tell me how passionate they are. So I used to call these passion tantrums. I'm so passionate about advertising. I'm so passionate. I'm so passionate. How do I get a job? And I'm like, well, look, if you're passionate, you probably have a lot of interesting things that you've put into the world that you could show that might lead you to a job. Have you done that? No. So your whole thing is to corner someone after they come off stage. I never said this, but I've written about it.
Right.
And throw a passion tantrum because you've been taught through the American mind that you have to be optimistic and passionate, and that gets you jobs. That would never get you a job with me. Show me something you've done. I want to see real stuff. Like, show me that you wrote for the college newspaper, or you had a community radio show, or you did events, or you sold weird things in a market. Like, I want to see behavior and activity. I don't need to be
Well,
propagandized.
you've just summarized the classic primary lesson that every writer teaches another writer. Don't tell, show me. Don't tell
Yeah,
me you're passionate, show me you're passionate. Show me your book, show me your activity, show me what you've done, who you've met, that kind of thing. That's a classic. Um,
yeah.
which has been do you have a favorite country? Do you find that certain cultures are uh uh show a different kinds of interest in strategy? What's been your
Oh,
experience from one country to another?
they're quite different. So let me talk about on a more personal level. Like, I'm literally writing. I've written about 25 lyrics in the past 6 to 8 weeks. I used to write a lot as a teenager and in my 20s, and I stopped. I just turned everything off, and now I'm trying to turn all the lights back on. I'm literally writing a reggaeton. My favorite music genres are reggaeton, dembow, and Brazil funk. So I'm literally just bashing out lyrics all the time. And the theme of this, I don't know what I'll do with it or if I'll do something with it. It's called Comet Sunbelt, which is just because I feel like a comet, and I'm better in warm cultures around the equator. Like, I'm good in northern Latin America, I'm good around the Mediterranean, but probably more Turkey, etc. So there are definitely cities that interest me on a personal level. Medellin is one of them. I'm wondering if I could build something here. I'm connected to the local industry, which I think is difficult in some of these countries. I love Istanbul, one of my favorite cities in the world. Uh, and so, and then, then the next layer is the cities that surprise me. I don't know if I'd live in a Manila or a Jakarta, but great energy. Singapore, maybe a bit boring for me, great energy. Hong Kong was good. I would struggle in cold cultures. My kids are half Korean. I'm not built for South Korea, Japan maybe, but I don't like the winters, etc. The US, there aren't that many cities that draw me in the US, and I've traveled to lots of them. And so I'm sort of like Santo Domingo and the Dominican Republic. I love my friends there, but it is not the prettiest or safest city in the world, but it's full of music. Like I want to be in places where I can just go for a walk and fall into a live music situation, preferably in Spanish. From a strategy point of view, look, there are pockets of really smart people everywhere. Um, I think if we're playing Guess who I not put down first it is harder to connect with the more mature markets. So the US, Canada would argue against me with this a little bit because they're so self-deprecating. We'll put Canada in there, the UK, Australia, New Zealand. Not that I've been to New Zealand recently, but when I visit those markets, especially, I'm just thinking about whether I'd put anyone else in there, but the English-speaking markets, the energy's good, but it's quiet. It's quiet. It can sometimes feel aloof. And the one surprising thing that I've heard every now and then when I've traveled is how strategy and account planning, people can, in some places, see it as an Anglo-Saxon act. Like people say, oh, we just needed some Anglo-Saxon thinking. And I'm like, okay, because it comes from London and the English language and okay, and capitalism. Okay. I'd never thought about it like that until a few people have said that sort of stuff to me. So I don't have like a complete answer. I think India is an interesting market, amazing minds there, very hungry people. I like where people are hungry. Yeah.
How has the experience of doing as much traveling as you do been on your family? Do you take your family with you, or do you leave them at home?
Complicated question. I have 19 and 17-year-old. One's in college in another state, playing soccer, D1 soccer all the time. The other's almost a professional dancer, dancing 7 days a week. I'm going to places where I feel good about myself.
Henry, give you a chance to talk strategy with a strategist.
Wow, it's so wide open. It's almost hard to pin down a question. I guess I just want to, say obviously I've been following you from a distance for probably 10 years now, more. Um, there was, I don't know if it's still active, but there was a Sweathead Facebook group. And I know that when I first, it was really influential, and so I wanted to thank you for that. At a point in my career where I was still I'm self-taught as a strategist. I didn't have the benefit of having any like, big holding company, agency, training program or anything like that. I came up in a boutique agency where basically established a strategy or planning, as we used to call it, um, basically out of necessity. I saw that there was a lot of work going on, but there weren't a lot of people asking why things were being done the way they're like, client was asking for deliverables, but I was always the one, well, why do they want that? And is this the right answer to whatever problem that that they want the solution for? So later I was able to work in larger strategy departments and had some mentors, but during that time when I didn't, I felt like it was really critical to have resources like Sweathead and Julian, who you've mentioned, who, gives away a lot of, free quick tip pointers that are, definitely valuable and usable. Like, so I don't have a question per se. I just want to say thank you.
Pleasure. yeah, it's, I experienced this with my hip hop magazine. I would get sent postcards and letters from people in the middle of nowhere in Australia saying, I'm the only person who likes my music in my town. And there's a bit of that happening, and that has happened in the strategy world over the past few years. Yeah, our Facebook group, we've got like 20,000 plus people in there. Unfortunately, Facebook has done a bad job of keeping people in Facebook, and also done a bad job of helping people who spent hours and hours building communities. Just sort of super disrespectful. Like, we get put on these platforms, we experiment, we work our asses off, and then they change the rules. So it's really hard for us to reach all the people who've sort of signed up for Facebook, and what we've got going on there. And also, generally speaking, online, the past year or two has been really, really difficult. Algorithms are weird. LinkedIn's weird. I don't get it. I used to be able to easily reach 500,000 people on LinkedIn a few years ago. Now it's like 5,000, and it's like, what happened? And so you got to experiment with different formats like video, but also I appreciate what you're saying. Like it's just goes back to solve the problem that you have yourself, solve it for other people.
Well, Mark, why don't we wrap up by asking you who have been some of the biggest influences in strategy? We've had John Steele has been a guest who was a deep influence on me. Robin Hafitz was a guest who was one of the founding partners of Mad Dogs and Englishmen. Russell Davies. We've had a fair number of really good strategists. Who have been some of your big influences?
I mean, just as a direct strategy influence, it has to start with Todd Sampson. He's super famous in Australia. He's got lots of television shows, but he's the one who gave me my job at Leo Burnett. I would also just generally say the Sydney planning community. There are a lot of really good planners there now, and there always have been, and it's competitive. Like I find advertising, or I found advertising in Australia much more alpha than I found in New York. It's just a different game there. It's weird. I'm not saying advertising is like a physical thing in Australia, but Aussies are physical and big at times. And so I always found it more aggressive. But I'd say that Todd Sampson is super, super important. Before that, I used to cobble things together on the internet or from the internet about search engine optimization, user experience, design patterns. Through Todd Sampson, I'd say people like Edward de Bono indirectly, has written tens and tens of books about critical thinking and creativity in business. And then I pick up, I'm not a fan. When I was really young, I interviewed some of the most famous people in the world, like Flavor Flav, Ice Cube. I don't need fame or celebrity. It doesn't interest me from other people. I like to have good chats, so I don't collect like who are the most influential people. But also there are books like Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron, this book called A Brief History of Seven Killings by Marlon James. They're books that really influenced me when I was writing my book. And so they're sort of deep within me. There are probably lots of other influences as well, like everyone I've worked with, but they're the ones that come to mind immediately.
Well, Mark Pollard, coming to us from Colombia, the owner and founder of Sweathead, amazing traveling show of strategy training, who's leaping the globe. And we are grateful that you could spend a few minutes with us. Thank you, Mark. Thanks for joining us on the Brief Brothers.
Happy we can make it happen. Thanks for having me. Peace.
Good stuff, Henry.
Good stuff, Howard.
He's Henry Gomez.
And he's Howard Eibach. Together, we're the Brief Brothers. Till next time.